Welcome into the CHGO Blackhawks podcast. It is Mailbag Monday. Hope you're having a great day. We are presented, as always, by PointsBet. Use that promo code CHGO when you sign up to get 2 risk-free bets up to $2,000, but that's not it. If you make a $50 or more first-time deposit, you will receive a free CHGO membership, which unlocks all of our great web content, and you'll even get a free shirt of your choice from the CHGO locker, like the one I'm wearing right here. That's $2,000 in free bets, a free CHGO membership, and a free t-shirt from the CHGO locker, all for making a $50 or more first-time deposit at PointsBet. I'm Jay Zawaski. We got Greg Boysen and Mario Tirabassi here. As I mentioned, it's Mailbag Monday. We've got the latest crop in Blackhawks rumors to get to as well. But Friday, we talked to Tariq Al-Bashir from The Athletic about Todd Reirden. We're going to continue scouting Blackhawks coaching candidates to start the show today. So we're going to welcome one of my favorite people on Twitter, hockey Twitter. You know her as the Active Stick. It's Laura Saba from Locked On Canadians. Laura, thanks for joining us. It's great to have you, and can't wait to hear about Luke Richardson, potential future Blackhawks head coach.
Laura, you're muted, Laura. Go ahead and unmute yourself real quick.
Still a little quiet.
Yeah, we're not hearing Laura, so we'll get that squared away, and then we'll bring Laura back in. But
the beauty of live podcasting.
That's what's fun about live podcasting, man. It's
Am I here now?
There we go.
All right.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I'm not sure what happened. It said unmute. I unmuted, but I was still muted. Hi, everyone.
There we
Thank
go.
you so much for having me. I'm so excited to talk about Luke Richardson, who is I think he's a well-loved person in hockey circles, I think.
Why is that? Why do you say so?
You know what? He seems to be, from all the player interviews, he's been in Montreal for quite some time now. He was in Ottawa before that. From player interviews, from the family story and everything like that, he seems to be the kind of guy that players would run through a wall for, which, you know, whenever you hear his defensemen talk about him, it's very much that way. He does seem to be a guy, obviously he had many years as a player. He does seem to be the kind of guy who knows how to talk to his players, communicate with his players. Really, I think he gives everybody a lot of time. And he seems to be that way with former teammates, with friends. Nobody would say a bad word about him. So he's definitely what I would term as a player's coach. And in Montreal, to be honest, he's definitely been the kind of person that has taken his role really well. You know, He's never kind of, when Martin St. Louis came in, who's, you know, it was an off-the-board pick, let's be honest, and somebody with no experience coming in to be a head coach. Luke Richardson did everything that he could to support Martin St. Louis. And, you know, when you talk about St. Louis, when he was asked when he was signed to an extension, do you plan on changing your coaching staff? And he said no, which to me, like, if you're a new coach, wouldn't you want to clean out your assistants and just sort of bring in your own people? So I feel like he must have made such a good impression on Martin St. Louis in that last, like, 40 games of the year stretch there, that, you know, he definitely seems to be a kind of team player. And again, when you hear his defensemen talk about him, and obviously in the Stanley Cup final last season, sort of the Western Conference final, which Montreal was inexplicably in, and the Stanley Cup final, Dominique Ducharme, head coach, had COVID, so he was out. So Luke Richardson had the bench for a couple of games, and the games went well. And they also, like, the way the players talked about his influence on the bench, like, he seems to be, to me, a very much loved guy in hockey.
Well, I remember, you know, when he did take over the head coaching duties during the Cup run last year. I remember when that was over, there was a lot of talk about him actually potentially staying in that role. You know, what was the thought process behind maybe sticking with him as the head coach rather than keeping Dominique Ducharme, having him come back?
Well, Dominique Ducharme overall was the architect of that Stanley Cup final run, whether it was for good or for bad. You know, it did mask a lot of the flaws the Canadians had, and it was an improbable run, and things went very much in the Montreal Canadiens' favor. So you can't not reward a guy like that with an extension, even though it was time for him to, it was like they could have walked away from it, right? Like it was time for him to renew the contract. They gave him a 3-year extension. You can't really not do that when somebody takes you all the way to the Stanley Cup final when you're such an improbable team to do that. At the same time, Luke Richardson also does not speak French enough to be able to communicate with the media and the fans. And in Montreal, that is a huge deal. And I just want to say, because I know that a lot of people outside this market don't really understand that, and they think that it's really the Montreal Canadiens shooting themselves in the foot in terms of coaching or general manager candidates, is that we're here speaking in English, right? I am an Anglophone Montrealer, but Quebec is a province of 8.5 million people, and that is, and out of whom I would say a good 6 to 7 million are Francophone exclusively. And that is the market for the Montreal Canadiens. So if you are a media-facing person and you cannot communicate in French, you're doing a disservice to the market. People are always like, why is it such a big deal? You just want a winner and all of that. No, it's important in this market because most of the exposure that people outside of the market have are to people like me who speak both languages and will communicate in English with outside fans. It's just, in Montreal, it is important that the face of the team, in whatever respect, is able to communicate in French, even if it's not great. I mean, Kent Hughes' French is not great, but, he does communicate with the media in French. And, so it's kind of a by committee thing. So we always knew that even though Luke Richardson might have deserved a chance to be a head coach, it would not be here.
Okay.
Well, if Luke Richardson decides, if he's the guy here in Chicago, he's coming to a team that will be very young and is rebuilding and tearing down. I know the Canadiens, for the most part, was a lot of veteran players the last couple of seasons. But have there been any success stories on that blue line? Because the Blackhawks have a lot of young defensemen coming up through the system. Have there been any success stories with the younger defensemen that where you've seen the progression that would make us excited to have Luke behind our bench?
I think it's a couple of things, because I have good things to say and not so good things to say. Because for me, the league is moving in a direction where you're less defensive defensemen and more mobile, puck-moving defensemen. Everybody has to be kind of two-way. I do think that the progression of Alexander Romanov over the last year and a half or so has been really, really key, because he does mentor really well. He's really good at communicating. But the thing that makes me a little bit nervous is that he does bring the best out of the players that he has. For example, Shea Weber, Ben Sherratt, like those were the anchors of that Stanley Cup run last year. They were so good. Every game you could praise the way that they were playing defensively as a team. But overall, in general, during the regular season in particular, or on the penalty kill and things like that, you would sometimes feel like there was no defensive strategy. So to me, the question that I have is not necessarily, is Luke Richardson a good coach or a bad coach? It's how much of the defensive philosophy was being decided or being overridden by the head coach. Because the games that he coached by himself behind the bench, or when he was the head coach, those were great games, and the team was doing exactly what you would have wanted them to do. So I feel like from a mentorship aspect, I'm pretty confident that Luke Richardson can bring the best out of a young blue line. But in terms of philosophy, is he the new style, or is he the old defensive defenseman style? And there are tons of teams that are still married to that. There are tons of markets that are still married to that. But today's NHL is moving away from that. So my question is, I have not, and to be fair, it's because he hasn't been put in that position. I've not seen anything to say that he's evolving with the times. I think if you want to be a successful coach in today's NHL, you have to be able to evolve. You could be a long-standing, old-school guy, and if you're able to evolve, you will find success. So that to me is the question, because we haven't seen concrete proof of that, right? And again, when he was the guy making the decisions for a few games, we saw what we wanted to see out of that blue line. And then, for example, Ben Sherratt or Shea Weber, those are what I would call old school type guys. They played their best in that run. So, there's positive signs and there's negative signs. But to me, the big question mark is who was calling the shots when the strategy was not there. As for Alexander Romanov, he is a player that people are really excited about. There's a player, Jordan Harris, who only made the team after the NCAA championships were over, or the Frozen Four, I guess. And he, he only played a couple of games with the Canadiens, but he had good things to say as well. I mean, he made a lot of good, sound decisions on the blue line. And when you look at somebody like Matthias Norlinder, for example, who the Habs were considered to have kind of failed with last year, he is a defenseman who's very mobile and puck moving. But I think it was a sort of an organizational failure and not really the D coach failure in that scenario. So I do think that, like, I would be confident that he'd be able to mentor somebody, like inspire, motivate for sure, 100%. But in terms of strategy, that's what I have the question mark about. Like, I want to know who was making those decisions when they were not able to get it together. They couldn't get the puck out of their zone. The penalty kill was terrible. Like, it was generally a philosophy and strategy thing more than it was, bad defense.
Yeah, I was gonna say being in Chicago and hearing lack of defensive strategy, it jitters a little.
Yeah, he'll fit right in.
Yeah, easy transition. So speaking of philosophy, we're not really sure what to make of the new Blackhawks front office yet, but looking at some of the periphery hires Kyle Davidson has made, it looks like they're going to have at least a big portion of things be analytically driven. Where is Luke Richardson in the analytic game? Is he just totally old school eye test? Is he a mix of both? Is he a numbers guy? And what about the Canadiens organization as a whole? Were they a very numbers driven org, or are they kind of best of both worlds?
I think in the past they were not, but with the new management, they are cautiously dipping their toes. I think much like the rest of the coaching staff, it's not that they're hesitant or anything like that. I do feel that there are certain old school coaches that feel like numbers don't tell the whole story until you kind of communicate to them that numbers are telling you what you already know. They're just quantifying them. So I think the big key, not just in Montreal, but also in Chicago, is not just having an analytics department, but having somebody either on the coaching staff or in the analytics department that can translate stats to old school hockey speak. Because most of the things that we're talking about, right? Like, we're talking about shot attempts. We're talking about blocked shots or shots directed towards the goaltender. Those are not things that are new. They're just being quantified in a different way. And he's never come out and said that he doesn't believe in that or anything like that. But what they always say is that they believe that the numbers don't tell the full picture. So if he's open to it, and again, it goes back to coaching having to be sort of, you have to evolve with the times. So if he's willing to evolve and just, if he's willing to listen, I think that's key, because he seems to be so smart and he seems to be so methodical about what he does. He doesn't get heated or excited. He's not that animated person. He's just very chill. If he's open to that, I do think that he is the kind of person that he'll see the value and he'll listen and make decisions accordingly. He doesn't seem to be the kind of guy that would just shut the door on them. But he definitely was brought up, like, both as a player and a coach in that old school mentality. I think, though, once you become a head coach, the game changes a lot.
Well, I know when we talked to Tariq El-Bashir about Todd Reirden, one of the things that he said about Reirden was that he thought that there might be a difficulty transitioning from the assistant coach who kind of played the good cop in that role to being a head coach and experienced that when he was with the Capitals. You say that Richardson's a really good with the players, really communicative. Players really respond to him. Do you think there'd be any transitional challenges with him going from being, the assistant coach to the head guy, where you're kind of taking over everything? You're not just focusing on certain players or playing that role of, like, pulling a player aside after a head coach gets after you and you're like, okay, well, let's look at this in a better way. Do you think there'd be any issues with that, especially since he did have some head coaching experience in a intense time?
Yeah. Yeah, it is short about it. I think, to be honest, I feel like he's the kind of person the transition would go really well, because he takes his job seriously, right? And so even though we're talking about how he is a player's coach and he's definitely the kind of guy that's going to be not your buddy necessarily, more like an older brother, an uncle, kind of like, shepherding you through. I do think that when it's time to get down to serious business, he has the ability to do that. I wonder, just in terms of whether or not, he hasn't handled a full bench in the NHL before, like whether that transition would just be jarring for him. But everybody has to do it at some point to find success, right? I think that the way that he approaches his responsibilities is a good sign, if that makes sense.
Laura, this has been great. It's awesome to get these coaching profiles. We want to make sure we have enough anger stored up when the hire's made so we can get mad and be irrationally angry.
We want to be informative and irrational at the same time.
Right. And we appreciate you joining us here. I know it was short notice. I reached out last night, so I appreciate you making this work on a busy day. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Anytime. And
Enjoy
if you need
Shane
us,
Wright.
you got the number. You know how to reach us. So we're always around. Thanks,
so
Laura.
much.
Make sure you're following Laura Saba on Twitter at The Active Stick. Just a terrific follow for all things hockey and listen to her work on the Locked On Canadiens podcast. She's one of my favorite hockey Twitter people. So anytime we get a chance to talk to Laura, I will jump at it. And that was great. I mean, sounds like just kind of like we said with Todd Reardon. Okay.
Yeah.
It makes sense. You understand why they've reached out. And I think my question was, and she got to it on her own, was, well, then why did they not hire him and bring in Martin St. Louis? And it's the French thing, which is Kirk Muller's another guy, I think in the same vein, who probably would have gotten a head coaching job had he spoken French. He would have been the head coach of the Canadiens. But
when you're the only team in the league that sends out, tweets and press releases in 2 languages.
Yeah.
Like, it's a big deal.
It's a huge deal.
Hence why Michel Therrien, Claude Julien, Elaine Vigneault have had multiple stints up there because, we need a French guy. See what Claude's doing this year.
You know who speaks French very well?
Jonathan Toews.
Jonathan Toews.
Yeah, there you go.
Toews does.
Yes, he does.
Breaking news. Future
Future
Jonathan
Canadian.
Toews to retire and be our new player coach in Montreal.
Honestly, if I had to bet on that, I think Jonathan Toews will coach, and because he can speak French, he will at least get an interview with the Canadiens someday.
He'll be an assistant at the very least.
Absolutely.
He'll be the guy that they send out to do the French pressers.
Yeah. All right, we've got a ton of mailbag stuff to get to, but before we do that, let's clean up some of the weekend rumors, some of the things that, of course, popped like the second after we got off the air on Friday.
Right,
Which is a tradition.
Yeah.
Things always seem to break at
We're not talking about
12:01.
Connor McDavid?
We could do that too if you'd like.
Never mind.
No.
Or the other thing happening on the old Instagram.
Yeah, it was a weird hockey Twitter
It was
night.
a weird late night
even
to
for
morning.
hockey Twitter standards.
Yeah.
I woke up this morning going, what now?
All right, so how do we want to approach this? Because Friday, we saw a tweet that said, "Oh, now Kirby Dock is being shopped."
And that was coming from Elliot Friedman. Which it did.
Yes. So, Mario,
The
you tracked
context.
down that audio this morning. Why don't you talk
So Elliot
our
Friedman
listeners
was
through it?
on the Oilers Now podcast with
Jed.
with Bob Stauffer on 6:30. Jed.
Shed. That's amazing.
But Bob and Elliot were talking on the topic of who the Oilers would be looking for, what they want to do with Evander Kane and things like that. And it came around to the Blackhawks and Alex Debrincat being potentially on the market and everything like that. And Friedman basically re-reported what he had said last weekend, where it was, besides Seth Jones, Jonathan Toews, Patrick Kane, the players with the no movement clauses, the Blackhawks are open to listening to offers on any players. That includes Alex Debrincat. And so then Bob Stauffer said, "Are you telling me Kirby Dock is on the market?" And Elliott just basically reiterated, any player without a no movement clause, they are open to listening to offers. So in a way, he's saying yes, but also not saying yes, Kirby Dock is being traded. Right. He's just saying the Blackhawks are opening up their ears to whatever offer is possible. The same thing that happened with Brandon Hagel, and they got blown away by a deal from Tampa, and now Hagel is in the Cup final.
Well, they should be, as we've discussed. There should be literally no one on the roster in the organization that is untouchable.
And if somebody makes a really nice offer for one of those no movement guys, you then talk to said no movement guy and say, hey, how about we do this?
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
Please.
But what I was surprised with is when those rumors came out, the Dock one in particular, hockey Twitter was like, what about William Nylander plus for Dock? And I'm like, is this what the league thinks of Kirby Dock?
Hey, I will make that trade.
I mean,
I hope so.
and this is kind of what we discussed last week when we were talking about Kirby. It's like, are we maybe too close to it to be analyzing him fairly, right? Like, and I know we get to see every game he plays. We know when he's effective and when he's not. So we have a better feel for Kirby Dock overall. But I also think we're looking at it from a place of maybe slightly unfair expectations, whereas people around the league are like, hey, this is a 21-year-old, 6'4" potential center who is a 3rd overall pick. A lot of people around the league see him as a guy with still a very strong future.
A very high ceiling, yeah. And I think there's a lot of people, I think all three of us think that he can still be a very good NHL player. But to your point, we've seen him for 3 seasons. Granted, they've been chopped up in different ways for him, but we've seen 3 seasons of him. We've seen him at the NHL level. We've seen his development path, and it just doesn't scream this guy is a can't miss, going to be a star in the NHL.
No.
It has definitely, that shine has worn off. But if people around the league, if front offices around the league want to look at him that way and offer the Blackhawks a pretty big haul for his RFA rights, okay, I'm listening. Like, what is the offer? Because he can be a building block to the rebuild, and he can be a very good player. But if you're telling me like you're going to give me multiple assets that might pan out to be better than Kirby Dock, all right, I'm listening.
Yeah, no,
And I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
If I hope there is a front office and a GM out there that thinks he's still that number 1 can't miss prospect and will trade accordingly for him. Because if that's the case, and I'm Kyle Davidson, I say yes, sir. This is done. Just overall, these rumors, as we've talked, yes, everybody should be on the table. Everybody should be. There shouldn't be a phone call Kyle Davidson is dumping at this point. Like, answer your phone, have every single discussion, see what's out there, see what the actual value is of these guys, and then decide accordingly. You can't decide, I'm not going to trade a guy until you hear what you could get for him.
Right. You had an interesting quote on the Debrincat trade off the air. Something about imagine what would hurt your franchise.
So
and add to
that
it, right?
also was said within the Elliot Friedman hit on the Oilers Now podcast from Friday, talking about what it would take to make an Alex Debrincat trade work from a team trying to acquire him. Elliot said something to the effect of, like, imagine what would hurt your franchise and then add more to it. That's what it's going to take to get Alex Debrincat. And if the Blackhawks trade Alex Debrincat and destroy a franchise's future because of it, that's something you do.
A successful
That's
trade.
something you do.
Absolutely.
But there are teams that are willing
There's
to
teams that will do
destroy
that.
their franchise for a Stanley Cup.
I say this going into every trade deadline. I say this going into every offseason. Never underestimate the stupidity of an NHL general manager and the visions of grandeur they have and thinking this is the one guy. And come on, I mean, you got to remember, I know different sport, but Mike Ditka traded an entire draft for Ricky Williams.
Yeah.
Like if Alex Debrincat is a GM's guy, he needs to have him.
Well, look,
Bleed him dry.
We talked about it a lot, and Theo Epps, he says every season is sacred and every chance to win is sacred, and we've ridiculed the Maple Leafs for not going and finding a goaltender ahead of the playoffs, and that's a team, as you look at things now, that gave Tampa the best run that any team has given them, and had they had Marc-Andre Fleury or another elite goalie, maybe it's them who's getting ready to square off against the Colorado Avalanche on Wednesday.
Or a higher end defenseman, or they had some needs that a team like Chicago could have helped them address.
So when you're on the cusp, you've got to be willing to make those things like, 3-4 years on a row, we might really regret this. But will you if you've got a Stanley Cup? Probably not.
If there's a market that if they just went all in 1 year, 1 year. And just completely, it was just like, we are getting a cup this year and damn the future. That is Toronto, because that cup will last an entire lifetime.
Yeah. There's come on, we can deal. We kind of sort of know what that's like. If we were Cub fans, people would trade. I don't care that the Cubs are god-awful anymore. I don't care if they win another game. I saw them win a World Series.
Yep.
That's something my father never got to do. It's something my grandfather never got to do.
Yep.
That's what they're at in Toronto. They don't give a rat's ass about the 21st overall pick this year. They would have gladly given that up to still be playing right now. Don't tell me there's a single Toronto Maple Leaf fan that cares more about that first-round pick in this year's draft than still playing right now. But unfortunately, their so-called genius GM valued that number 1 overall pick more than the first Stanley Cup in God only knows how many years. So, deal with it.
Well, look, the Cup final starts on Wednesday. We'll get our prediction piece out at allchgo.com. Probably Wednesday morning, I would imagine. It's typically how we do it. But with that, I think it's time to get to Mailbag Monday. But want to remind everybody, the best way to support CHGO is to download that PointsBet app and use the code CHGO when you sign up. Do that right now, and you're going to get 2 risk-free bets up to $2,000. But that's not it. If you make a $50 or more first-time deposit, you'll also receive a free CHGO membership that unlocks all of our great web content, and you'll even get a free shirt of your choice from the CHGO locker. My CHGO Fire shirt just arrived last week. I'm going to wear that tomorrow.
Nice.
That's $2,000 in free bets, a free CHGO membership, and a free T-shirt from the CHGO locker, all for making a $50 or more first-time deposit at PointsBet. It's your home for live in-play betting and the home of live NBA same-game parlay. The NBA Finals are underway. Celtics and Warriors, I know my stuff, see? Place a live NBA same-game parlay during those games, and it's so much fun. Combine your favorite bets anytime during the game, and if you want more, you can always boost your live same-game parlays. Watch live, parlay live, and boost live with PointsBet. And remember, online registration is available now in Illinois. Start to finish, get your phone out, download the app, and you are good to go, and you're ready to start placing your wagers. So what are you waiting for? Once the game starts, don't just bet. Live your bet life with PointsBet. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-522-4700.
I had a pretty good experience with the PointsBet app over the weekend. I selected in Game 6 the first goal scorer was going to be Steven Stamkos, and in the same bet that the Lightning would win, it was plus 1,400, so we are back in the game.
Nice.
Yeah.
Our play of the week, by the way, I said first goal scorer would be Andre Palat. That was wrong, but he scored, and Brandon Hagel did score in that game, so I was right technically. Bet-wise, we were 50-50. So
hey, 50-50 is not too bad.
Yeah, it's not bad.
And by the way, wearing the CHGO Fire shirt tomorrow is very appropriate, considering fire will be raining down from the
Be
sky.
100 degrees.
Hopefully it's a very breathable shirt.
yes.
Yeah, they are.
They are.
They are very
high quality,
comfy,
breathable,
good stuff.
good for sweaty days.
Yeah.
Yes, and if you're feeling like you're gonna go test yourself in the heat and the sun, and maybe go on a run down the lakefront trail or anything like that tomorrow, when you get back, I know I won't be doing that, but when you get back, you might benefit from a product called Owen, OWYN. It is standing for only what you need. It's a 100% plant-based protein shake that gives you the nutrition that works as hard as you do. All of their products are free of artificial ingredients. They are allergen friendly. They contain no gluten or dairy and are easily digestible. And that's good for me because I try and cut out gluten and dairy when possible. And you may have heard about Owen from Chicago Bears quarterback Justin Fields, as he follows a plant-based diet. And Justin Fields, our manager Jake, brought in the Justin Fields bobblehead to add to the collection. So maybe put a little
box of Owen,
a little bobblehead-sized box of Owen. Put it right next to Justin, and the bobblehead will feel right at home. And right now, Owen and CHGO are partnering up to give you an awesome offer. You can get 20% off your first purchase at liveowen.com with the code CHGO20. So join Justin Fields and myself. I am a purveyor of Owen, or a purveyor? What's the word?
Enjoyer.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Owen
it's
enjoyer.
Monday. We're all downhill the rest of the week. Join Justin Fields and myself, an enjoyer of Owen, and try it for yourself. That's Owen, OWYN. Only what you need. That was a smooth read.
I liked it. Very smooth. Just like Owen.
Just like Owen.
Smooth
and
cold Owen.
plant-based.
Yeah.
All right, let's get to our mailbag questions. We're going to start with Sung Hyung on Discord. Remember, if you want access to our members-only Discord, become a member at allchgo.com. They ask, considering Alex Debrincat took a hometown discount with his last extension with us, do you envision him seeking a max contract when he reaches free agency in another season? Well, it's starting to look like he's not going to be a Blackhawk
Right.
when that
big if.
comes. And I think I want to be clear. I don't know if what he took was a bridge deal.
It's not necessarily
not-
a hometown
Yeah,
discount.
it's not really a discount. It's
Sidney Crosby's deal was a hometown discount
Right,
when he signed
right.
it.
Yes.
years
But I
ago.
think-
Stamkos was a hometown
Stamkos,
discount.
yeah.
what Alex Debrincat is looking at if he reaches unrestricted free agency, or his next deal with whatever team it is. You're talking a minimum of $9 million per year.
Mm-hmm.
That's, to me, if I'm Alex Debrincat's agent, the conversation starts at 9. Actually, it probably starts at 12 and will not end
And you meet
until
in the
it's
middle, yeah.
overnight. You know what I mean? So it's he's going to get a big payday here, and that is kind of the purpose of the bridge deal. Is hey, like we'll give you a short-term deal for more money than you were making, but probably not as much as you're totally worth. And it's kind of a
We'll
both
worry
teams sort
about
of
that
roll the
giant
dice.
cap hit later.
Listen, there is
Yeah.
no discount of any way, shape, or form coming for Alex Debrincat. No
No.
matter where this is his chance to get that big payday.
This is the one.
Go get it. And guys that take quote unquote discounts to stay with teams are teams like the Penguins, teams like the Lightning that are going to win championships. That ain't happening here for the first 5 to 6 years of this deal. If he re-signs here, you're not taking a discount to be part of a rebuild. You're
No.
taking as much money as possible, saying, "I'm the guy. Pay me like I'm the guy."
You're going to need to make it worth my while to stick around for all
I
these
can
losses.
go play for a championship contender right now,
Yeah.
or make it worth my while, like you said, to stay here for these 4 or 5 years of pain, and then maybe we're good again. So discount Alex Debrincat. Those two words should never be said in the same sentence.
No, and I think if he hypothetically, if he were to hit unrestricted free agency, nothing tells me that he won't be, an upper 30s into the 40s goal scorer next season. That would make 5 out of 6 seasons in his career that he's been just an elite, high level goal scorer. That's in the way that the league is going financially right now. That's going to be $10 million at least.
And according to some of the conversations I've had on Twitter over the weekend, the only thing guaranteed in professional sports is that Alex Debrincat will score 40 goals a year for the next 10 years.
Well.
That's the only guaranteed. Nothing else is guaranteed except Alex Debrincat, best goal scorer in the league.
Well, staying on
That's
the
what I
topic of Debrincat, we got a Twitter question from Tom. He says, any rumors of Carolina being interested in Debrincat? If so, which rumored trade partner, New Jersey, LA, Carolina, or someone else, is the best fit for the Hawks? For me, it's New Jersey because of that number 2 overall pick. If that number 2 overall pick is included, as we discussed last week, that player becomes your top prospect. And then probably if you're talking about a Dawson Mercer or Holtz or whoever else you're going to add to that package, they're probably your number 2 prospect. Right. And that bumps Lucas Reichel to number 3, maybe Ian Mitchell to 4, down and down and down. That's why, to me, New Jersey makes the most sense because the pick is the highest.
Yeah.
And probably the most likely to generate a successful player in the league.
Yeah. Carolina seems like a team that would be one of those teams, like we said, that would just go all in for like a cup run and would do something like that for Debrincat. But yeah, I'm with you with New Jersey. That seems like the team that makes the most sense for the package that could come back to Chicago.
Yeah, that number 2 overall pick is the thing that makes me say, yes, Alex Debrincat is expendable. Carolina is a team, I think I mentioned it last week or the week before, right after the season, that makes sense to be a potential trading partner because they need a little bit of a shakeup there. They've had really good regular seasons the last couple of years and just can't get that next step in the playoffs. They kind of had some of their big offensive stars kind of be passengers for a lot of that Rangers series. They need that extra guy. Imagine Debrincat on a line with Teuvo Teravainen, and that'd be pretty fun. We could have had that here, but, things happen. And so they make sense as a fit for Alex Debrincat, but do they make sense as getting full maximum value back? Not 100% sure. They do have a lot of good young players, but you won't get that. So for them, it would be, well, we need multiple first-round picks, and those are going to be picks in the 20s.
Seth Jarvis.
Those are going to be like, sure, absolutely.
Would be nice.
Seth Jarvis and the next couple of first-round picks. But again, those first-round picks are like those Tampa picks.
Right. They'll be
likely to be
late teens, 20s. Yeah.
They're going to be playoff teams. So that Devils pick is the one you want to do. And if that's on the table, that's where those conversations. And I had a conversation with one of our CHGO members in Discord over the weekend. I can't remember the name right now, so I apologize, but SP something. You know who you are. He said, well, I don't think it's a good fit. Debrincat's a good fit for the Devils. I go, well, if they give us the number 2 pick and a top prospect, I don't care if he fits on the Devils.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
It's not. And the Blackhawks shouldn't care if he fits on
Well, when Jack Hughes needs a winger.
Yes, exactly. He needs a goal scorer, and Alex Debrincat's the best goal scorer on the market. So it fits in my world, but again, once he's a property of the Devils, I don't care if he fits.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't
anymore.
matter.
All right, so on that beat, Mac on Twitter says, hypothetically, if the Hawks do manage to acquire the number 2 overall pick in the Debrincat trade, who would you want the Hawks to draft?
I mean, it depends what happens with number 1 because
Shane Wright's not a slam
Shane
dunk
Wright
anymore.
is. It's so weird. He went from being like he's the next McDavid to like he's the next Patrice Bergeron to I don't know if he's the number 1 prospect.
He's been talked about for so long now that people have talked themselves out of how good he really is.
Yeah.
He's been the number 1 overall pick for this draft for 2 years now. And now it's just like everybody's had 2 years to like break down every single play he's made and said, well, you see his left skate on this play. He's going to be a bum. So, it depends what Montreal wants to do. I think they're going to stick with that pick.
I think they probably still do.
Yeah. I think, let's look up. Did he take French in college? If he took French in college,
I mean, he's Canadian, so he's probably had some French lessons at least.
He's been exposed to it.
Yeah. I think if Wright goes number 1, I know you love Slavkovsky a lot. There's not a lot to not like about him. But I look at the Blackhawks and I just look at the need for a centerman. And they have Lucas Reichel. He's all fine and good. But I think if the Blackhawks were to move into that number 2 spot and Shane Wright's off the board, I really like Logan Cooley.
That's my guy too.
I love Yuri Slavkovsky, but I would absolutely do cartwheels here in the CHGO office if they get Logan Cooley too. Like
one of those, either one of those two. It's not a bad selection.
Fits your need more. It gets you that potential number 1 center of the future. Here we go again. But he definitely fits that need. But Slavkovsky, man, he's got the size. He scores. I mean, he's got the speed. He's that hybrid player of years past, the current player. You can't go wrong with either one. I hope we get to have this debate on draft night.
That would be nice.
Because the Blackhawks own that pick.
That would be a lot of fun.
I've gotten into the point where I'm like, hell, if we're going to do an Alex Debrincat trade and it's for that number 2 pick, let's do it. Let's freaking do it. I love Alex Debrincat, but you know what? I can see how that helps the rebuild a little better.
And what's interesting too is if you had a chance to read Ben Pope's work over the last couple of days, he did an interview with Blackhawks scouting, I believe it was scouting director Mike Donahue, and they said the Blackhawks are going to be focusing on in this draft forwards with speed. Kyle Davidson has said that he wants to have a faster team, and the Blackhawks have a depth issue at forward and a speed issue. So
they got plenty of
speedy forwards. There's plenty of them at the top of this year's draft class. So I think if they're like you said, if they're going to do this Debrincat trade and they're going to talk with teams at the top of the draft, do it. Go for it and find that player that fits that profile that you believe can turn around your prospects.
Go big or go home.
By the way, Chris Peters, who's going to join us on Monday, the 27th of June of the Daily Faceoff, published his latest 2022 draft rankings. He has Logan Cooley as number 1, surpassing Shane Wright. So that's another guy who really likes what he sees from Logan Cooley.
And Ben Pope will be joining us next week on Monday.
Yes. Very exciting. We got a lot of good guests coming up, working on some other stuff. We got to get our Bradshaw scouting report done this week.
I'll call
so-
Ron Simmons this weekend. I'm gonna pile on your joke.
He's got a hell of a clothesline.
All right, this one comes from Ted on Twitter. He says, your best guess, what season do the Blackhawks become relevant again as a potential playoff team? When do they realistically challenge for a cup? I think it's
2022. Let's go.
It's too soon to even speculate because we don't know what's happening at this draft.
no.
We don't know what's happening with Kane and Toews. We don't know what's happening with Debrincat. So
We don't even know the roster for next season.
I would have a better idea. I could probably answer this question a little more honestly.
August 1st, we could probably give you
Yes.
a little better idea.
Once we
Yeah.
know what happened this offseason, what the roster looks like, and kind of what Kyle Davidson's plan is for filling the gap between rebuilding and contention. Because I really don't, and he's sort of said, like, you can't go all Rockford. That's not going to work. So I think we need to see exactly what his plan is for building out here before we can even begin to guess at that. If we look at the roster now and just say, okay, they're going to draft the draft as it stands, and Debrincat is still here, it probably shortens that window to the playoffs or probably elongates that window to a Stanley Cup. Because I think you need to stack with top prospects to get back into Cup conversation again.
If I had to make an educated guess and things go as planned for Kyle Davidson and he gets this team going, he hires the right coach, he makes the right drafts, he makes the right trades, and he's got the roster he envisions, I wouldn't think this team could be even talking even close to playoffs until 25-26 is like when we start to be like, hey, they can be really fun and competitive and maybe get the second wild card, kind of like the Red Wings were for a little bit this season. 25-26 is like where I would even think that we could even start reaping the benefits of what, and that's if everything goes right.
Right. And the only hope of anything sooner than that is if Kirby Dock all of a sudden figures it out and is like a 60-point guy, and Lucas Reichel jumps in and is a Calder candidate,
and we get Connor Bedard next season.
That would help.
Yes.
That would help things as well.
There are ways to speed it up, but those are not impossible, just improbable.
Yeah, at my most optimistic, I'm thinking 3 years before they're even in like a playoff chase.
Yeah,
right.
Where we can be talking about meaningful games the first week of March.
Yep.
Oh, that'll be fun. I look forward to that.
Yeah, on the ride, right?
Sort of on the same beat as the roster construction. From Why Bother on Twitter, what do you do about Brett Connolly? Keep him buried in Rockford for one more year and take the 2.375 cap penalty, or buy him out and take the 1.167 buyout penalty for 2 years? This to me is a guy who is a good candidate as a body, as a guy who can come and play on your NHL roster. He's not going to make your team better to the point where it's going to hurt your draft capital in any way, shape, or form. But I think as we start to look at potential bodies to fill out spots, Brett Connolly is a great candidate. And from all reports, he was nothing but a good trooper in Rockford.
He was.
Good example, leader. He was not pouty. He didn't bitch about being sent down.
He was one of their best players till he got hurt.
Right. So I think that's when we look at guys who could be here for the next year or two, filling out those spots until kids are ready. I think Brett Connolly is a really good candidate for that.
That Ice Hogs playoff series against the Chicago Wolves could have been a little bit different. I'm not saying they would have won, but they would have been far more competitive with Brett Connolly in the lineup.
That would have helped, yeah.
I have zero issues bringing him back and letting him be that leader in Rockford and that guy you call up when you need a fourth liner because you've got injuries. Listen, salary cap.
I mean, this roster next season, he might even be a regular.
He might even. He
knows?
could be. Crap, he could be on the second line next year.
Really?
Oy vey. But
Connor
listen,
Bedard.
he's a pro. Yeah, he's not a great NHL player. Those days of him getting 20 goals, but maybe he could be a 20-goal scorer if he's literally the only
with
guy.
opportunity,
there.
right?
Yeah, so, who knows? $2.67 million on a team that's rebuilding. Like, I think we have to untrain our brains to stop worrying about salary cap hits.
Yeah.
I get it. We have been preconditioned. It's Stockholm syndrome that we go running back to the salary cap because it has been such a nuisance and it has been such a problem chasing cups. Those days are over. Like, we don't need to worry about, oh my God, this guy doesn't produce and he's got a $3 million cap hit next season. So what? Like, it doesn't matter. And why take another year for a cap hit for a guy that could be a somewhat valuable veteran. At least, at the very least, if he's in Rockford all next year, he's essentially another coach on the ice. He's a leader that shows these young kids what it takes to not only get to the NHL, but stay in the NHL. There's a lot of things that go. People just think for young players at the AHL level, it's just about playing productive hockey. There's so much that goes into it.
Learning how to be a professional.
Learning how to
manage
be
your
an adult.
money. Yes.
Learning how to get your own cell phone account because the billet mom is taking care of it for you for the last 4 years. Learning how to pay your rent. These are not jokes. These are things that these 19-year-old kids, some who've never spent a day in North America, have to learn. And, you could screw yourself real quick if you don't have somebody there that helps you with that stuff well. And I think Connolly was a guy that embraced that. A guy like Garrett Mitchell, the Ice Hogs captain, is another guy that you need those guys to help these guys along the way as well.
Full disclosure, forgot Brett Connolly was under contract. So I
had to have Henrik Borgstrom.
I apologize to Brett if you're listening.
Kind of on the same vein, from Chris on Twitter, Frank Saravelli put Tyler Johnson on the top 10 buyout candidates for the summer. Do the Hawks buy him out or wait until the next offseason and attempt to trade or buy out then? I say wait until next summer. Again, you need people to play on the team. I really like the way Tyler Johnson sort of jumped into a leadership role once he got back from injury last year.
Yeah.
Had a lot of really powerful things to say after games about habits and learning how to win, learning how to lose, learning how to deal with controversy is not the right word, with difficulties. The trade deadline goes and a lot of players you love are gone. Some teammates are gone. Tyler Johnson was one of the guys who was kind of guiding the ship, just like Connolly did in Rockford. Johnson was sort of doing it in Chicago. And, of course, you had help with Toews and Jones, and there were some other veterans here. But I was just really impressed with how he came off, to the media when the season was wrapping up. So I think that's another guy they look to keep around here. Again, he's not going to make a difference. It's going to be like, oh, man, he's too good to keep around. He's going to really sink the Blackhawks rebuild, designs here. Now, I think when you look at Connolly, you look at Johnson, those are two guys you kind of want to consider as, all right, in an ideal world, we probably want to have that cap money, but again, for what?
Right.
You don't need it right now.
They're not at the point where they need to be penny pinching. They're going to have enough young players on cheap contracts that the massive deals that are on the board right now, it doesn't make a difference. And having Tyler Johnson at $5 million, you just kind of brush it off. It's like, all right, fine. He's a middle six forward at $5 million who's past the prime of his career. He plays a role of a leadership in the locker room, and you have to have somebody to help on the ice bring along some of the young players as well. If Tyler Johnson's had a ton of really good experience in his career with the Tampa Bay Lightning, a 2-time Cup winner, and you have to have somebody like that around. I know they have Jonathan Toews and Patrick Kane, who knows for how much longer, but you got to have somebody around like that can help pull along some of the young players, and especially a young player like Lucas Reichel in the forwards group, who's right now you could probably pencil in to be in the NHL lineup starting to start the season. You need guys like a Tyler Johnson who can not be necessarily the superstar, intimidating presence, but someone who's been there, veteran, knows what to do, approachable, and can help in those ways.
Because I don't know if Toews is approachable. I think a lot of guys.
I don't know if he wants to be approachable anymore.
He can't be bothered, it seems.
Yeah, it does have that feel to it. And look, maybe we're being unfair, but just look at the way he has acted over the last calendar year. Being unhappy, being vocally unhappy. If I'm a young player, I'm not walking up to Jonathan Toews and asking for advice.
He's a guy that Derek King called grumpy.
Yeah. Tyler Johnson we've talked about this before, when the Hawks signed Chris Kunitz, it was kind of like, what are they doing? Well, now he's still part of the organization. Tyler Johnson's a guy who I could see when he hangs up the skates being part of the Blackhawks player development staff and having a role off the ice as well.
Well,
so
if you want to build a winning culture, you got to have people who've been part of a winning culture.
Have winners.
But there's Toews and Kane. That's it left from the Cup run. And we just talked. Is Toews here to help the culture for the next 10 years? I don't get that impression. No. Patrick Kane may not be here past this season, even for this season. So he's a guy that came from a winning culture outside of this organization. So I think there's value to what he can bring to this team as a whole. So, it for young players to hear from guys who've done it, it means that's worth the
makes a
$5
big
million
difference,
for
yeah.
a team that shouldn't be caring about the salary cap right now.
Connolly's another one.
Yeah.
Was on
He
a
won
cup winning team,
yeah,
and yeah.
So it goes a bit. There's unequivocated value with those guys. You can't put a price tag on that sort of thing.
Right. Yeah, it's important to remember it's not just like a video game. Because
Yeah.
I won the Stanley Cup
Yeah.
with this current Blackhawks team. Just thought I would mention that again.
We'll take
For
it
those
off.
that forgot.
Take it off rookie mode next time. Let's see
Excuse
what
me.
happens.
Excuse me. I don't appreciate that. This one from Alex on Twitter. This one's just to trigger Greg. Quick question on Mailbag Monday. What would the current state of the team be if he who shall not be named was still GM?
We'd be in the lineup. We'd be trying to get whoever the crappiest trade rumor is on the market.
Zach Cassian.
Yeah, it wouldn't be bad.
Would he?
I'd have a lot more. gray
Evander
hair.
Kane.
Yeah, we'd be in line for. There it is. Kane and Kane connection.
So I don't know if this was. I saw you were kind of going to bring up a question, but I don't know if this is the direction you were going to go. But maybe it was you that brought it up, but someone brought it up that said if there was no controversy, would Stan Bowman still be here given how this season went out?
He would,
and I think he would
because he was his own boss. He was the
He
president.
was just promoted.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Ro-
2 years ago.
Yep.
Rocky has Jerry Reinsdorf-esque loyalty.
Tendencies. Yep.
Keep in
And,
mind, Stan Bowman resigned. He was not fired.
Yeah.
He
Air
resigned.
quotes. Resigned.
Stan Bowman's like, I can't do this.
Why didn't we get to the second part of Alex's
Oh, we're
thing?
gonna.
Okay, good.
Yeah, Alex also says, I think the Hawks should skate out onto the ice to Children of the Grave by Black Sabbath.
I'm for it.
Hell yeah, dude.
I'm for it. Though I am a big fan of them skating out to Four Horsemen by Metallica
That is
now.
pretty
but
great.
Gotta
that
get some
going.
horns up there.
Yeah.
But anything. You can never have too much Black Sabbath
No.
in anything.
That's not a
So, yes, I'm all for it. Nothing but Metallica and Black Sabbath at Hawks games, which would make Bruce Miles' son very happy.
There
Yeah.
you go.
Who was in a Metallica Black Sabbath tribute band.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
A Metallica and Black
Yes.
Sabbath tribute band.
Yes.
That's fun.
Nice.
I go see them.
What is the name?
I don't want to.
Can't say it?
I can't think
Oh,
of it
can't
off the
think
top
of
of
it?
my
Okay,
head, and I don't
gotcha.
want to say it wrong.
Sabbathica. All right, we got one more from Hank, and this one's a little involved, so pay attention.
Oh man.
He says, I listen to the show every day, thank you. I have a
Nice.
bunch of questions and topics I'd love to hear your opinion on, but one that popped into my head was all-time, where would you rank the Dynasty Hawk players? All-time, Kane is top 50, and player probably, and then Toews is top 75 maybe. Keith top 75 as well, or higher, along with Hossa. And then after that, maybe Crawford or Seabrook top 150 range, if that. I think the only player in the top 100 of all time
Wait,
is Patrick Kane.
is this a math question?
Yeah, he's saying
take my shoes
of
off
the
to count. Hold on.
Dynasty Hawks, who's like in the pantheon of greatest ever
Across the league?
across the league.
Oh,
I think
okay.
Patrick Kane's the only one you could talk about in the top 100. Maybe Duncan Keith.
Maybe Duncan Keith.
The NHL answered this question a few years ago with the NHL 100.
Taves was on that team.
Toews,
Keith,
Kane, and Keith.
Keith. Yeah.
There's your.
I think though now that we're like some time has passed and Taves has declined a little bit, he probably falls out of that top 100 mark. Had he maintained Jonathan Taves
Yeah.
till now,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
right? I think that Keith surpasses him. I don't know where they were ranked.
Well, and I guess my question to the question would be, are we going based purely on the hockey player, the skill, or accomplishment?
Well, if we're going to start the whole, he's declined his last couple of years, so we got to take him off, then we got to look at everybody who's on that list and look at their last 2 seasons.
Yeah, true.
Because I'm
'Cause
sure
Keith would be off.
but I'm sure like all these legends of the game
Yeah.
tailed off at some point. So like I think putting them on this list now because we have that, he's not the player he was. Well, maybe we need to step back a few years and judge the career as a whole before we even
Career
have this
as a
number.
whole, all three of them are Hall of Famers.
Because you look at Guy Lafleur, he's no doubt top 100 player, but were those years with the Rangers and Nordiques great?
No.
I mean, Chicago legend Bobby Orr.
There you go.
Yeah.
A
It's
guy like
interesting.
Dennis Savard, would you put him on the top 100 of all time?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
How are those? How was that second run with the Blackhawks?
Yeah. No, you're right.
So
Yeah,
it's a little unfair to make that decision now. I think we need time to step away after their careers are done and then revisit it and say, oh yeah, full work of body.
I think even with time away and time once their careers are over, I think the trajectory of Patrick Kane is still at an elite level.
Yeah.
Heath and Toews, I think their careers are cemented. And Toews, I wonder if his stretch of his prime was enough to. It depends on how long it is, but is that enough to overshadow what the stretch of his decline might be? Because if he plays another 5 years and he keeps being less and less of an effective player, then it's like, ugh, man, he really not fell off a cliff, but like really you see the decline. If he only plays out his contract, another season, maybe you still just say, oh, the prime of Toews was. He is one of the best centers in the league.
There is some thought, too. I was just chatting with one of my sources kind of casually about the offseason, and they mentioned that they believe this is just one person's opinion, that he's just going to call it quits after this contract. Like, he's been
I would not be
through
surprised.
all the concussions, the other health issues.
Yeah,
he's
got
won
nothing
3.
left to prove.
There's nothing left to accomplish for Jonathan Toews. All there
How far
really
is he
is to
from
do is to
1,000
damage
games?
the legacy. And I just don't see another organization being like, yeah, we're going to invest in Jonathan Toews.
Yes.
There's just so
Does
many.
Does he want to be Corey Perry and on a different team every year playing fourth line minutes? It might get him to a few Stanley Cup
I
finals.
was gonna say
maybe,
Corey
but-
Perry's been 3 straight finals now.
Right, but how much? But can you say like outside of maybe that Montreal playoff run that those
He's
teams
over
got
1,000
there
games. What am I
because
doing?
of Corey Perry?
No.
But I'm just saying, does he want to bounce around from team to team and be
No.
bottom 6 guy? He doesn't appear to be the guy that wants to do that.
He
He
strikes
wants
me-
to be the best player in the world.
I think Perry's in a cup chasing
Right.
period of his time. Toews does not need to do that,
no,
Right.
he's got
or
nothing
I
to
don't think he
prove.
wants to. Either.
And because he's the face of 3 Cup champions.
Right.
Absolutely
Right. And
captain.
I also think Toews is a guy who, not that Corey Perry doesn't by any means, but I think Toews specifically he values his after hockey life.
Yeah,
Just from hearing from him over the years, erase
got-
the things he said this year.
he's got interests off.
He does. And
Outside of the rink.
We talk about a potential coach or GM or whatever else. Jonathan Toews can do whatever he wants in hockey when his career's over. Like, he's going to have his pick, right?
Yeah.
Just like Sakic and just like Yzerman, he's going to have the same, if he wants it, he could have the same trajectory. And look, it might not be as great as those two at doing it, but he's going to get a shot at whatever he wants to do. So if you're asking me, does Jonathan Toews sign another NHL contract? I don't think he does. I think wherever he finishes his career is his last stop.
And
Well,
and
that's
and
the most obvious statement of all time. But you know
It
what
was
I mean?
in the last
Wherever
place
he
I
is,
looked.
Wherever he is when this contract expires is where he will end his career.
well, and to that idea, I wonder if maybe that's been communicated to Kyle Davidson, like where maybe he might say, like, I'm just gonna finish here in Chicago. Please don't trade me. He has control over it, obviously with his no movement. But I wonder if Jonathan Toews isn't moved at the draft, if he's with the team the whole season, if he's not moved at the trade deadline, whatever it ends up being, I wonder if that is something that has been or he might have already communicated.
If that's the case, get ready for the farewell tour next year.
Yeah.
Yeah, get
absolutely. You gotta
the
cash that in.
tissues ready.
Got to sell them tickets.
Yeah. And look, if Toews says that, he has earned that right.
For sure.
But I just want him to be,
And it's
if he's going to be here, be on board, or at least pretend to be. Put on a happy face, say, "Hey, it's exciting, this team. I can't wait to see what they, from a distance, I'll be watching these young guys, and we're really excited about it." He's got to have a better attitude.
and I think if he has made that decision or makes that decision, I think that will come with an attitude change, because I would like to believe he's mature enough to know how that affects the rest of the team moving forward. And it's interesting too. I keep pointing at this bobblehead like it's him. It's
Johnny,
interesting
Listen
too.
to me, Johnny.
Yeah. For someone in this stage of his career, at this age, to think like I'm stepping away, like that's kind of admirable to even think about. Like, hey, like he's thinking of, he's had a very tough career physically, and he's thinking of his life beyond that. And we see players retire early, retire young. Some guys that just, maybe they're just like, you know what, I didn't have it enough to cut it at the top level, and I was getting hurt a lot, things like that. But someone of his stature to be like, you know what, I'm cutting it early. That's something you really haven't seen a lot of in sports, and I think that's kind of admirable if he goes that route.
Yeah.
Well, if you want to wake up every morning with a better attitude and extend the prime of your career, then I suggest you check out our friends at Strava Craft Coffee, because they have helped thousands of people improve their overall wellness and quality of life. Strava delivers delicious, fresh, roasted specialty coffee infused with our organic broad-spectrum CBD. The CBD from hemp doesn't make you high or hungry, but it does offer you real benefits that are going to help you each and every day, such as feeling alert and focused without all the jitters. You're going to live your day more balanced with less anxiety and fewer aches and pains. Plus, including CBD in your daily routine can even help you get a more restful night's sleep so you wake up feeling your absolute best. Much easier to have a good attitude when you're feeling good. The best part is Strava is all about quality. Everything is small batch, fresh, and shipped straight to your door. It is absolutely delicious coffee, so the coffee snobs like myself will enjoy a good cup of coffee, but you're also going to get all the benefits from a powerful entourage of full-spectrum CBD. And plus, CHGO listeners can save 25% off their entire purchase when you use that promo code CHGO25. That's 25% off your order just by typing in CHGO25 at StravaCraftCoffee.com. That's STRAVA. And if you're already a big fan of Strava and their products, and you should be, you can join the Strava Coffee Club. That's where you get to subscribe and save lots of money. You pick your favorite flavors of coffee, your favorite concentrations of CBD. You tell them when you want it and where you want it sent to, and they take care of the rest, and you save money. It's just too darn easy.
It is. You're right. All right, that's going to wrap up this episode of Mailbag Monday. Remember, if you want to get your questions answered on Mailbag Monday, email us, blackhawks@allchgo.com. That way we are not going to lose track of them on Twitter or whatever. Tweet us too, but it's much easier to track when it's an email. But follow us on Twitter, @CHGO_Blackhawks. I'm at Jay Zawaski. He's at Greg Boysen. Mario is at Mario_Tirabassi. We'll be back Tuesday with Top Shelf Tuesday. Always a fun day of the week. And remember, we're presented by PointsBet. Use promo code CHGO when you sign up, and you'll get 2 risk-free bets up to $2,000. We appreciate you being here on this Mailbag Monday. We'll talk to you on Top Shelf Tuesday on the CHGO Blackhawks podcast.